Yeah, it's just cozy.
Well, it's better for the people on Zoom.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Recordings in, hi Joyce, come on and sit down.
Somebody else is late.
I'm moving cozy. That's what Lynn told me.
Welcome, I hope everyone's having a good summer. I know we're very excited about, what's happening on the political scene, which if we have a hot minute, but Ellen will tell us, we will have postcards to,
Postcards will be here within the next week or two at the most.
Great.
And they'll be for Texas for sure, because contested senatorial race. We wanted Arizona, but I don't think we got it. I can't tell you what's.
I signed up for postcards with the RAC.
the rap.
Yeah, so that's directly with.
And I'm getting 60 postcards are coming, and they should come tomorrow.
Okay.
And I've already written 200.
Oh my God.
That's great.
It's great.
I
I have to work too.
200
Who you
commission.
doing?
Yeah,
we're doing
postcards.
As long as you're doing them, it's great.
Good.
got 200.
And so I obviously, our actions here are nonpartisan. So,
Oh, mine are.
what? Well, so should you want to work on a partisan, one, that you can,
Well, that's why I do it.
There are.
we're not forgetting.
Well,
No,
they're all, at least.
They're-
all the Jewish organizations are on.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And you also.
I did. I did.
Yeah, if there's Candace and.
empathy, a whale tail.
Oh, don't go.
We've talked about, Zoe Klein before, and in this is definitely, references, Jonah and the whale. And of course, first of all, we will be, we read Jonah and the whale, on Yom Kippur. And, also Rabbi Stephen Bob will be here. I don't know if I think he'll be virtual, but, on a Sunday morning, talking about the book of Jonah. He's a very animated speaker, and right before Yom Kippur. So, getting us in the mood for the high holy days, because who's not in the mood to fast for a day? Get that headache.
That's my favorite day of the year.
You're being sarcastic, right?
Of course.
Yeah, I dread it, and I in my desk, I take it once a year, Excedrin,
Oh.
because it
For the
has
headaches, yeah.
caffeine. Because it has caffeine. And one year I tried to winnow down, and for 2 weeks I was miserable. I said, okay, I'll be miserable for one day. Okay, back to the thing here, empathy, a whale tail. What is the difference between sympathy and empathy? Elaine, understanding.
That I think is the main thing. I think sympathy is just, oh, I feel sorry for you, but
Yeah.
they don't understand what you're going through.
Right.
I think empathy, someone has maybe experienced it in some way and feels differently.
Alice,
In addition to what Elaine just
real
said,
loud.
okay, in addition to what Elaine just said, I was thinking about it because obviously it's one of the questions, but I feel like empathy moves you to action. In the Tikkun Olam world.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Sue, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I
This
think.
Sue. I got two Sues.
Holding down the fort.
Which one?
Sue Ellen.
I think that empathy is actually being able to feel what the other person feels. You take it to your heart and your soul.
Yeah.
You can really feel for them.
Is there another, I can't help but think about the choices we have in November. And, I think both, we don't know Tim Walz well, but whatever I've seen so far, I like. and he seems empathetic, and they tell stories about him, and someone said that, you know, he and Kamala are the same age.
Yes, I know.
They're both
Yes,
60.
morning.
And so someone said to him, "You look older than you are." And he said, "I worked for 20 years in the lunchroom at my school, and that will age you."
He's got a very good sense of humor.
Very good sense of
He's got a
humor.
great sense of humor.
But you see these angry pictures of both Trump and Vance,
Yeah.
and it's just frightening. It's just so frightening, and see the people at the rallies, and they don't seem at all.
I would love to understand that. We're not talking. about
No,
that.
we're not talking about it. That's why I'm giving some more more plugs for adult enrichment. The week after elections, Jim Kenny will be virtual. He will not come in person anymore, but he'll be virtual, and that's gonna be, I'm dying to call him just to say, to say, oh, making sure you're coming, blah, blah. I wanna know what he has to say about Kimmel. All those things are so fascinating for
So
me.
I have a question
Yeah.
about the word. I used the word empathize,
Mhm.
and someone corrected me. And they said, that's not grammatically correct. You should say you're empathic.
Yes.
Oh.
Have you ever heard that?
No.
I had neither.
I haven't.
I've seen it.
I've heard both.
I've never heard
I think
empathize.
I've seen it, never heard empathize.
Well,
Never.
empathize, you hear the English teacher, but they're different. If you're empathic, it's an adjective, right?
And the,
Empathize.
right,
is a
but they
verb.
said that
Yeah.
empathic is reference,
Really?
which I had never, is there a
Yeah.
distinction?
I don't know
All
about
right.
that.
Well, if you accept that one's an adjective and one's a verb,
Then
I
use
don't-
it in
yes,
context.
that doesn't make sense. That it's
Right.
not verb.
Right.
Okay.
Janice has shared with me that she, she prefers people to empathize as opposed to be sympathy, because sympathy is almost like, I don't want to say pity, and
Yes,
no one
But
likes
it
to
is,
be
no,
pitied.
right.
No one
Yes.
likes to be pitied. But you want people to empathize with what you're going through or what's happening, and
Well, the problem is.
but you don't say to someone,
I empathize,
right, you do say that, but do you say, "I wish you were more empathetic"?
empathic.
Empathic?
You know, no, because problem, I don't think there's anything wrong with sympathy. I mean, if you aren't feeling, if you haven't had, let's say you haven't had a loss, which is probably, I mean, everyone's had some kind of loss. Let's say you've never lost a sister.
Right.
And, or even the feeling of loss, had that, then you can empathize. But if, or whatever it is that your, person is feeling, if you haven't been through it, you really cannot empathize. Because you haven't felt that experience before. But I think sympathy is not hollow. I think sympathy is valid.
Yeah. I mean, before I lost my dad, I write a lot of cards to people who have lost, and I'll say, "I can't imagine."
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
to someone who's lost a child,
Right.
"I can't imagine," because I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
Can't imagine it. And I hope that because occasionally, people try to one-upmanship, and I had a friend once, and she was complaining about, her feet hurt, this and that, and I finally had to stop it with, "I have cancer." Do not tell me that your back hurts and you're this and you're that. And she stopped. So I don't know what she was trying to do, but you hear a lot of that. I think it diminishes whatever the person's talking about when you say, "I had that, yeah."
I'll tell you
Okay,
what,
Then
I have suffered a loss a few months ago. And people are very sympathetic in the beginning. and then they forget, okay? So I think that empathy is something that stays with you and people respond more, to it. And I think sometimes sympathy gets you in, sounds hollow. After a while, it's like, okay, already I'm done with it. But empathy, I know what you've gone through, and you will, and sometimes people give you advice, and sometimes the advice is good. And I've been.
And sometimes it's not.
Yeah, okay, but I've been through that and you will get better. Simply saying that helps, rather than, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And you know that they don't understand what you're going through, because you can't
Right.
unless you've gone through it.
Agreed.
So I think it's a very sticky, funny kind of thing, and I think we, you know, I've been listening to podcasts, and I'm gonna go on, I'm gonna try not to. And, I think we as Americans put on this hard shell. Okay, you'll get through this. And some people get through it harder than others. And some people walk through it and come out the other side. And I think it's very difficult for us as, you know, stick your chin out and be tough, as to understand what people
I
have gone through.
actually think that's a generational thing,
Yes,
because now, millennials, Gen Z, they'll come and talk with me and they use terminology. I wanna say, oh, who's your therapist? You know, tell me more. How are you feeling? How about, it's just like, oh my God. And you can't tell anyone, but, so my daughter is a school counselor. And so when she school counsels us, like, well, mom, you know,
Oh, yeah.
tell me
Yes.
more about that, you know,
Yeah.
how do you feel? I'm like, and I agree with you. I do think, our generation is the, you know, we're just talking about it.
stiff upper lip,
Stiff upper lip, put up and shut up,
yes.
Move on.
move on.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, listen, I see with the kids and their parents, you know, oh, you know, it's the beginning of school now. So they're just like,
So we need the words that will avoid those. And
Yeah.
that's the key. I try not to mention the word sympathy or empathy when I'm writing a note.
oh,
I use the words. I know you have a great support system. There's a great void you're feeling. I mean, trying to get to the words of what I felt when I had that loss. So, validating their feelings, I think, is the best way to handle it. Even if you haven't experienced your things.
Right, I agree with that.
But it's easier if you experienced it, so you know what you know.
yeah. Sue, well,
Well, I don't wanna put thorn in this, but could we get to?
yes, let's get to the book. Let's get to the book. This,
Because
go ahead.
there's something in the book that I found really profound.
tell us.
Is when Owen, the whale,
Yeah,
when he vomits.
yeah.
And
Jonah.
they're Jonah,
Yeah.
and he's talking about the tentacles.
Mhm.
It's like he doesn't know what that was that had made him feel so sick.
So nauseous.
And, right, but his father knew it was a human being. And I find that very interesting.
That the elder generation knew.
Knew what that was, and I just found it really fascinating.
Right.
That I just found, how does that,
It's very satisfying. That's what it is.
right, how does a fish know
Well, that,
that, you know?
It's
You know it
it's a
is, I
parable.
know that. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, I guess I've made a mistake because as I said to Vanessa earlier, I had read this book a long time ago,
Oh,
the whole book. I had it. I don't know what made me order it at one point. There was something about the explanation that fascinated me or something, and I ordered and I bought the whole book. So I've read the whole thing, which I think covers I think,
Well, the copyright's 2023, so it couldn't have been that long.
well, it was then.
You
That's
probably,
when it was.
she
Unless it
spoke
was an
for
early-
us, and maybe after she spoke,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's when I got it,
Okay.
right.
not 100, yeah, Alice.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, and I'm looking, it looks like it was the grandfather.
It was the grandfather.
Yeah,
right.
but it looks like I'm thinking, well, the grandfather has had more life experience.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and a little,
Right.
and so
It makes
that
sense.
he
And Wales
encountered
lived
humans.
for a long time.
I'm sorry, what?
Wales lived
Yes,
a long
right,
life.
right, right.
Um, so this story looks at the Book of Jonah from the whale's perspective, which obviously the Book of Jonah does not. What other perspectives could you imagine in the Book of Jonah? What might their story be? I mean, there is a lot of details in the Book of Jonah, and I'm gonna put it up here. Sepharia, which is SEFARIA.org. Jonah is in the Bible, so it says Tanakh, which is Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. And, they consider Jonah a Navi, a prophet. And you can get straight to his book with the Hebrew, the English, and everything that you need. But the whole, Jonah, God told Jonah to go to Nineveh. He didn't want to go. He gets on the ship. The ship is in a big storm. The sailors are like, it's because of him. Let's throw him overboard. They throw him overboard. The fish eats him. He's there for 3 days. And then, he gets out of the fish, vomits him up. And then God comes to Jonah a second time and says, go to Nineveh. And so he went. And there's another very interesting part in this, which has nothing with this story, but Jonah gets shade from like some type of weed or I want to say eggplant. I'm not sure what it is. And then it dies. And he's really sad. He's not sad about what's happening in Nineveh, but he's sad about this plant. And so I do think that there is, misplaced whatever it is there. And empathy, right? Right. I don't know what
I thought he was mad because the whatever provided him shade, and it wasn't until it died and he is sitting baking in this
Yes.
wasteland
right.
that it was really hurting him, that he came to the
Yes.
conclusion.
Right.
And this may have been the
Yes.
transference from no, I won't to yes,
Yes, I will. Also, the whale is saying, what's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? And, I didn't know that he swallowed a human. I don't know if that can be true.
I must be missing something.
Why?
What is the swallowing the human?
That's like Jonah, because when they threw him over,
Right. Right, but what does he learn? He thinks this human is big and gross and yucky, and so what's the point?
of him.
Thinking the human is icky and
Right.
big and gross.
Well, I think that, I think he didn't know what was happening to himself. And then, they were laughing at him.
Yes.
Janice also said that this would be good for a middle school, reading group, talking about being laughed at,
Embarrassment.
Bullying.
They talk about embarrassment.
embarrassment.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't anything that he learned from swallowing, was what the people.
Around him and how they
how
treated him,
treated
right, and
Got it.
a little bit with,
Okay.
a little bit with Jonah. I think that, embarrassment is another interesting, something that we can talk about. How does it feel to be laughed at versus laughed with? And you see many people, including, I can't help myself, Tim Wolf, who make a joke about themselves, so people don't laugh at him, they are laughing with him.
Right.
And I think that's, I think a lot of people do that. think
I do
that's
that all the
something
time.
That, right, you try to,
Diffuse what is going on.
right, or, self-deprecating humor, or, the elephant in the room, or, and that's, I think people, and I also think that young kids, or a young whale here, they don't know how to do that. When they don't, when people laugh at them, they don't know what's happening and just feel bad about it.
So here's another point to think about. What prevents people who have been through the same thing? What prevents them from being empathic? I mean, why do people withhold their feelings
Mhm.
to help that other person?
Yeah.
What is it about our
Because they don't wanna
society?
get involved. That's one
You
thing.
think
No,
no,
I
I don't
think
wanna
it's an
get
inability.
involved.
Okay,
Alan.
it's either one.
I think it's an inability. I
it's
think
either
when
one.
someone doesn't have, there are people that just don't know how to understand the other person's point of view.
Yeah.
Empathy implies I don't remember which word you said, but you said exactly what I was feeling. It's action, but it's also self-action. Empathy involves you getting involved. Whereas you can be sympathetic with someone because you feel sorry for them, but that doesn't mean you're involved. Empathy usually is because either you can put yourself in their place. Your example, though, losing a child, obviously it's very difficult to do.
Yes.
There's lots of other things that you can
Right,
put yourself in the place where you've had something that's similar, and you really can you're just much more involved, and you're real. The person takes empathy as a real.
but I would also, this is where I would challenge, is that to be empathetic, my second son is on the spectrum. He does not pick up, visual cues,
Yeah.
even verbal cues. You have to get out the frying pan and say, Jonathan, do this. And so people may think he's not empathetic. Occasionally, then he's too empathetic, and can start crying. And I'm like, whoa, buddy, and
But that's the
But-
extreme.
it is, but it's not, there's more and more, again, I hate to go to current events, but that the kid that shot Trump,
Yeah,
he was quiet, he was this, he was that.
it's also bullying.
Yes.
He also had a lousy.
Yeah.
Right. But, okay,
All right, wait,
All
let
right.
me say one other thing. Watching
Yeah.
medical show, if you watch medical shows. Okay, they go to the parents or whoever's
Yes.
waiting and they lost the patient and this phrase, I'm sorry for your loss, it's like
Yes.
gags me now. But that is the statement, I'm sorry for your loss, doesn't sound sincere or anything. To me, that's a defensive protection.
absolutely.
If they cried at every patient they lost,
Absolutely.
they'd lose. But for ordinary people, other than people on the spectrum or whatever.
Right.
What involvement is it what do they not want to get involved in if they say, this must be really tough for you, that the grieving, I know you're gonna grieve for a long time, but and you have a good, strong, words that show more than, I'm sorry for your loss.
Okay, I agree with you totally. It's one thing to say something. It's totally a different thing to get off your butt and do something.
Do what?
Go out for coffee. with the
Oh,
person.
okay.
Listen to them talk, whatever. It's one thing to say, I'm sorry for your loss, and go to the shiva and wash your hand out. It's a totally different thing what Ellen is saying. It's like, okay, I will do this for you. I will call you 3 months later and say, how are you?
Yeah.
That is the
Okay.
difference between sympathy
So if
and
you think
empathy.
that they go further than, I'm sorry for
Yes,
your loss,
yes.
committing yourself to an action.
Yes, and most people
Okay.
don't want to be tough. They don't want you to taint them with your loss, with your sadness.
Oh, that's a difference.
Okay, but I'm saying that
Yes.
is the difference between sympathy and
Oh,
empathy.
I understand that.
Okay, that's the difference.
But my question was, why is it so hard?
Because people don't want to be involved. They're busy with their own lives, whatever their lives are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Vanessa, for running. For going on and on.
What I was gonna say is this, is that, I think paying a shiva call is super important, going to a funeral, super important. People say to me all the time, well, what am I gonna say? Even young people, I'm like, just go.
Yeah,
And at a traditional shiva, you don't say anything until the mourner speaks to you.
Right.
You know, sometimes you go to a shiva today, yeah, you go to a shiva today and it, you know, it's like a party and then there's all this stuff. Sandy has her hand up. You need to unmute. Go ahead.
I guess the way I really learned empathy was I spent 28 years up until a year and a half ago as a hospice volunteer. So I spent the last days with a lot of people over 28 years who were in the time of their dying. And you learn to be a listener, not a talker, just being there and listening. That is a sort of form of empathy. And I learned a lot. A lot of people say, how could you do that? How could you sit with dying people all the time? It wasn't hard. And they were all different. I could write a book about with a lot of chapters, because people need you to listen, and that they feel you're empathizing with them by just being there.
Janice also wrote, people have their own source and are leery of getting involved. And that's what Elaine said. And I, you know, people, people are leery of that. So I'll tell you, my mother, we really want her to move out of the house. She's 90. And she goes, I don't want to go hear, you know, other people's stories and have to get to learn it. Now, when she goes to the doctor, she talks to the receptionist. I'm like, oh, we gotta go. You know, like she wants to tell her story,
Yeah.
but she doesn't. So
I think one of the things that people have to realize is that no two losses are the same.
yeah,
And it's very difficult for someone to empathize.
Yeah.
Because, well, I'll just give you an example. I mean, I hate to use myself as an
it's
example.
okay.
But after my husband passed away, there was somebody who was on a second marriage. When her husband died, he was not the father of her children. They hadn't been, I mean, I've been married for over 60 years. My husband died in the most horrible way I could ever imagine. And it was sudden and it was frightening. And to this day, it's been 3.5 years and I am not over it yet. And I don't know that I ever will be. But somebody was trying to compare her loss to mine. And I thought, shut up. You don't know anything compared to what I've been. And so it's nobody knew what to say to me.
Yeah.
People are.
And
Yes.
I
People are afraid to talk.
and I understand. And for like the first year, people were so attentive and inviting me for dinner and bringing stuff over and coming to visit and just doing, and it was during COVID.
Yeah.
And everybody was as kind and as good as they could And then after a year,
Yes.
it's like, get on with your life, Sue. Well, I have gotten on with my
Yes, you
life,
have, you have.
but it doesn't mean that I'm
Right.
enjoying every, every minute.
Right.
I mean, I went to Ravinia by myself last night.
Wow,
I was supposed to go with someone who backed out at the last
yeah.
minute. And there I was at this fabulous concert. And it was wonderful, but as I was driving home in the car, I was thinking, damn it, Dick, why weren't you with me?
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't get over those certain things, and it's never the same.
I hear
So-
you, I hear you, yeah. Alice.
Yeah, to go along with what you just said, Sue, and also what you said, Lynn, I'm not sure I understand what's objectionable about saying I'm sorry for your loss. Because you don't know really what that person is going through, so to say anything more specific, I'm not sure I understand, because I guess I say it a lot.
I think you can follow through with another remark or an action. It's just when people say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Hi.
No,
Well,
I'm
it's better
talking
than
about,
that.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
they-
about like either in a card
No,
or at a shiva. I don't see what's
it's
objectionable.
not objectionable. It's just that what I think they're saying is people say that and that sort of gives them permission to move on with their life.
Oh,
Yeah, that's.
Because it's so overused. For me, watching these shows and I hear it all the time, it sounds canned. It doesn't sound.
Well, I don't know,
To me,
that's, to me, it's different from, when you're talking about a
Yeah,
doctor
but
saying,
you're talking about
I
sincerity.
agree with you.
Sincerity is in the eye of the beholder.
True.
Just like anything's in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
So the fact that you can't just say certain words are hollow. It's the way they're delivered. It's what it's followed by. It's the
what I'm
relationship
saying.
that you have with the person.
Yes.
So there's so many different innuendos here that I don't think there is any black.
Joyce and then Lynn.
Alice, I agree with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying it.
No,
I
there's
don't
not.
think
It's the follow through afterward.
I often say those words if I meet someone, a stranger,
Right.
that I don't know if they have intention, that they had a loss. I will say, I'm sorry. for
Yes,
your loss.
right,
right.
But if I know the person, I don't know, I'm trying to recall if I've used those words, and I probably don't. I
agree with
try
you.
and be more empathetic and more personal. And I want to reference the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
I thought the
Yeah.
grandfather was, I mean, is on page 26 was right on spot when he was talking, and he said, empathy is when you feel the feelings of another. Like when your friend is excited because they are going on a trip and you feel excited with them. And then skipping down a paragraph, or 2 paragraphs, his grandfather added, it takes time to learn empathy, but experiences like you had today help you to learn. Like when you see someone who is embarrassed, you will feel their feelings and you will be able to comfort them. And I feel that is so true. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Elaine. And there's a commercial running now for the Olympics. And I don't know what sport, but it gets to me every time. Sometimes I don't pay attention for, the product or whatever they're selling. But a runner falls. And another runner comes and picks him up. And there's a little girl watching. And she took it in and liked what she saw. And the next time she was out on the field and an opposing teammate fell, she went and picked up another little shot.
Oh, my.
Yes, and I mean, it gets to me, I
Uh-huh.
tear up every single
I
time.
think that's what's going on in our, I'm trying not to get.
I know, it's so hard. I have like 1,000.
There
That's
has
what
been
we
a
need.
role modeling of uncivil behavior
Yes.
in our
Yes.
society.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it is permeated, and summer camps, kids are leaving because kids are bullying each other.
Oh, yeah. it's
Okay,
terrible.
I heard this.
No,
Oh, I know. All right, two things I wanna say.
You know,
One,
few and far between.
in terms of shivas,
Yes,
and funerals, a friend of mine said, I remember the people who didn't come more than the people who came.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
And,
yeah, my mother is on that. Crap.
I would like.
She's
to
like,
know
where was
someone-
so-and-so? Where was so-and-so? Where was so-and-so?
Well,
That's someone who-
and the
that's-
second thing is,
Yes.
we had a friend who was going through intensive cancer treatment. And the wife said, I so appreciated those people who would leave the casseroles over at the door and not expect me to come and talk to them. So this giving to people, this idea of not getting involved.
But that's
There's a
getting
fine,
involved.
there's a, that
That's
is
getting
getting
involved.
involved in different,
Right.
different respects.
Yeah.
Respect the person and how they're
Yeah,
feeling.
sometimes it gets to be, to say the same thing over and over again, if you are the spouse of someone who is sick, to explain the
Right,
illness
yeah, I
again
know,
for the
exactly.
30th
Right.
time. But that is, leaving it is doing
It's
something.
doing something.
Yeah.
You know, it's so hard, I think, people don't, and even as adults, we don't know what to do for someone, and we don't even think about it. Just sort of go on our way, I think that.
So a couple of things. One with the I'm sorry. When people heard I had cancer, they would say I'm sorry, and I hated that because what are you sorry about? I mean, I know what you're sorry.
Yeah,
And I used to say, I did a blog thing. I said, say hineni, which means I'm with you.
Oh,
You know, like
that's-
you.
I am here.
Here I am.
Hineni, here I am. And here at, you know, I'm in the office, people call, and I get, you know, the first waves of this one's sick, this one's that. The first thing I say is, do you want a Misha Berach? Second thing I say is, do you want the rabbis to call you? And occasionally, you know, people say, oh, you know, rabbis didn't, clergy, whatever, you want, and nobody from Macomb called us. Well, we don't have ESP, you know, like, you have to tell us you're sick, and then we can, you know, we can end work and that, and then sometimes people don't want to be on the Misha Berach list. And sometimes people don't, you know, please, don't have the rabbi, you know, call me. So I think that, I do think though there is a role model of incivility, and I'm hoping, that these new people, you know, I think Kamala and Tim, I mean, they seem just A, normal, and B, civil. Like, it's such a low bar.
Well, I
It's
was gonna
such
say
a
that.
low
You're
bar.
comparing the monsters of the world to a human being, okay? I mean, it is so different, but we also have to remember that there are lots of people that like Trump.
Exactly.
What?
Okay.
I
However,
I don't understand.
Sue, then Joyce,
So to get back to.
get back to the book, yes.
Okay, well,
I have a
Thank you,
question.
Sue.
Yes.
And because I'm reading on my iPad.
Right.
Through the Kindle, I don't know what page. I can't
Okay.
tell you what page. But it says, maybe they didn't know at the time that he had been frightened by the lightning and had swallowed a rancid human. Now, is that referring to Jonah? A rancid?
Probably.
I mean, do we know what rancid means?
Yes,
We do.
We do know what it means, and Jonah did not, you know, he didn't want to go to Nineveh, he didn't want to save those people, he was putting the sailors in danger. I would say Jonah's rancid. We will have to ask, Steve Bob what he thinks, but, you know,
I just found that.
yes. I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah. What?
Rancid's a good word.
Rancid is a really good word. Super good word. Joyce.
It's off topic. I have to
Go on.
read the contrast of people like Kamala and Tim smiling to the unpleasant faces of the other team is so like, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Richie Grant.
Is so heavy.
So here's the,
It's ridiculous.
here's the
It's so
definition of
nice.
rancid.
Yeah, wonderful.
The
smiling
de-
face.
the definition of rancid, smelling or tasting unpleasant is a result of being old and stale.
Okay.
Oh. Yikes.
Wow.
So maybe it's.
Janice also put in the chat here, after Shivra, 30 days of mourning, people are done. Nobody wants to be with a Debbie Downer. They want to live with you, not grieve with you. And, you know, there's certainly, you know, people, I would say people definitely, you know, want to grieve with you. I would also
Oh,
say
I
though,
don't
Janice,
Think so?
well, no, but.
I think a lot of people don't have a
But-
sensitivity to.
You have 30 days, but the Jewish mourning period is really 11 months. So, you know. Alice.
So going to what you said about you, Amy, you know, I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that is probably the best thing you can do because everybody is different. Some people, they don't want you.
Yeah.
Stay away. I'm grieving, I'm doing it my own way. Other people
Right.
can't stand being alone and want all the
Right.
input. So I think you have to take your cues from the person
Right.
because
Agreed.
everybody's different.
And that's part of empathy.
Yeah, yes,
That's
Understanding
knowing
that.
what-
right. But, Joyce, go ahead now.
No, it's, but very often it's difficult to read. Unless the person is able to express it and tell you what they want, it is hard to know.
Well, yeah, I agree with you.
You
but-
can't be, very often, one cannot be a mind reader.
Well, I agree with you 100%,
Try,
but if you say, I'm here for you,
But then don't do anything,
Right,
it's meaningless.
right. It is. I think you
Well-
have to try. You have to be part of what the person has. And if you make a mistake, it's better to be there and make a mistake than not be there at all and say, oh, I'm not sure what to do and I want to leave them alone. Okay, that's what I think.
I'm gonna float this out there and then I'll tell you what I think. Do you think you can teach empathy?
No.
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
I love this group. All right, Sue, why yes, then Lynn?
Yeah.
Because a lot of things you learn from modeling. And so if you take your family to Shivas from the time that they're young and little, if you have a teacher to have any type of loss, well, the children don't know what to say, they don't know what to do, but they are going to follow and watch very closely what you do. And children particularly, adults sometimes kind of tune out, but children particularly, I think, has radar. They see and hear. They may not give you the satisfaction of letting you know that they have seen what they've seen, and they don't always recognize what it is. But they will learn how to be empathetic. They will learn how to do things from the models that are set. And adults are the same way. If you have not been to a lot of funerals, you don't know what to say or do. You show up and then you just kind of have to watch them. And it is not hollow for somebody who is not well experienced to say the words that come out of their mouth for lack of anything else. And so I think I haven't experienced so many of that kind of loss, but, from my point of view, I think accepting whatever anybody says to you is meaningful. Even if you start unpacking the words later and maybe you don't like them so much. But it's in the reaching out and understanding that people are doing the best they can with what they have.
Agreed, Lynn, and then Joyce, then Ellen.
One, I had a unit in school, and teachers.
Yes, they
Great
do.
responsibility to
Yes.
teach them. Where I gave the kids 3 scenes. And they had to ask how they would react in the scene, and we talked about it.
That's a
Like-
great
Like
activity.
a woman who's being attacked across the street. What would you do? You're in the house and you hear the parents teaching the kid friends. And you're there, what would you do? It brought up a lot of discussion. So that in itself, and parents teaching. I had a friend and I would admit that my family was not big on empathy. But I have a very close friend who is the most giving person in the world. And through the years of being friends with her, I've learned from her. And so I think it's learned. I'm not sure you're born with feeling how to feel with somebody unless it's practice and it is action. Somebody said that to me. People say, oh, I'll have to call you, or let's have coffee, or don't ask. Do it. Call it.
Yeah.
Call them and say, hey,
That does remind
do you
me,
want to go for coffee?
2 people said that,
They say that.
no, that I need to call back.
Right. I will tell you a story. We live right by Ravinia, and lots of people park by my house. My husband had a friend who, they were trained friends, and he would go to Ravinia 3 or 4 nights a week. And he parked by our house. That's not a big deal. So at my husband's shiva, this man says to me, oh, I have to call you. We can do dinner and stuff. David died in October. Come May, then he is opening up. Okay. So he calls me, oh, Elaine, we have to do dinner. And by the way, can I park at your house? So I
What did
said,
you say?
yes and yes. So he keeps saying, we have to make a date for dinner. I said, I'm available. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Never gave me a date. So finally, when he called, I being the not nice person.
You're not nice.
Okay, I just didn't answer the phone.
Oh,
Okay, so I know he never called and said, okay. Not that I needed it. I don't even want to go to dinner, but it's just it was so funny. So I discussed it with my extended family, and my young family all said to me, "Don't give him a pass."
oh, you have to give him a.
Yeah, and then he puts it in the mailbox. Because the police come and give you a $75 ticket. Right. So it's not a big deal.
Cut him off.
I did. But it's so obvious.
Exactly, like, did he think he was sneaking in?
Right.
Joyce was gonna say something, then Ellen.
I think one can teach empathy, especially to children. And they
The
can,
younger
they,
the better.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they can learn it in school, and they can learn it in the classroom. In preschool, I know my grandsons all did, and they also learned it from their parents.
It's good. In today's world with Trump, it's hard to
I'm sorry, but
No, we can't get away from it.
we can't.
Opposition.
We're of one mind, I think.
Right, I mean, it's
All of us.
it's so prevalent. You know, that kind of,
It's dangerous.
yeah.
Um,
Somebody
I think
said
that
this
Okay,
morning.
Ellen, and
I
then,
was just gonna say, I think that the teaching model is so important because hopefully you're teaching them to be receptive. I think
Yes.
the answer to the question, can you teach empathy, is you can offer, but if they're not receptive, there, and there's, you know, if they have to go halfway or whatever percentage of the way. So it's, you have to know who you're dealing with. I mean, you know,
Right.
try to reach out.
I mean, you have all said, children here. My son Jonathan is 33. So we watch movies together at home. And when I see him laughing inappropriately, we stop the movie and like, what's happening? And you have to continue teaching people who are at a disadvantage because they're on this, whatever it is.
Yes.
And we name it, we're very forthright about it. And I think that's very important. And because we're getting towards the end here, Judaism places a strong emphasis on doing rather than just feeling. Empathy is usually understood as a feeling, but are there actions you can take to express empathy? And we've talked about that. And I just want to say there's also actions. Day of action is Sunday, October 25th.
Nice transition.
Thank you. But this Sunday is Cantor J, Bob Dylan, Part Deux. So you should come for Cantor J. Ellen will let us know when we have the postcards. I am really pleasantly, but I am surprised at the amount of requests I've gotten for the postcards.
No, I've gotten lots of emails, so I know.
Yes, you do. I'm like, talk to Ellen, talk to Ellen. Talk to Ellen. And I think these are just a few of the ways that we're gonna be able to just work. Now, we didn't talk about compassion or whatever this is, fatigue. Because yeah, or not compassion, but also the fatigue of political fatigue that I feel like I've been working, since Trump was elected in 2016. I just feel like I've been on a treadmill and my kids and, trying to make the world a better place and working against really these monsters. They are monsters.
I was at my physical therapist yesterday, who happens to be a modern Orthodox Jew.
Yeah, sorry.
But she's,
I'm sure she voted for Trump.
oh, no.
Hey,
Oh, no, she's a very liberal thinker in many ways. She was raised that way, but she's not fanatical by any means. She was telling me and being critical of all the Orthodox Jews she knows who are for Trump.
yeah,
Yes.
yes, they're all
And she was very critical of them.
good.
I have a friend that is a conservative Jew and she used to be a Democrat. Now.
They think he's good for Israel.
Yes.
Yeah,
get it.
I don't
I
get
don't
it
get it either. And after that,
Because
that
he
thing
likes
that he said
Netanyahu.
about Christians and
You'll only have to vote
you
once.
vote once and how he loves
It's
his
gonna change
Christians
the world.
and everything. How, and I can't figure out how any Jew or any woman could vote. I just can't
Yeah,
figure.
well, and on
They're
that,
all the same line.
while I still have some people online, I think we should talk about the book. I know some people have come to me, that like, this is for middle schoolers, this is too easy, this is fine. So, there are a few stories in here I would like to get to, and I'm happy to kind of, pick those stories and we can pick a new book. But I leave it up, what do you think?
Well, if you've read the book and there's stories that you think are really good,
Yeah.
I would love to.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with him.
Yes,
I
we should
agree.
read next.
I think.
Well, you gotta give me a hot minute. I know, by tomorrow morning I'll send out an email.
I think any of the stories, this group has an interesting conversation.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this story did not resonate with me as much as some.
You weren't empathetic.
Okay, I was,
Or sympathetic.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I read it in last night, 15 minutes, and I was done with it. But I think the conversations are worthwhile. So, you know, I agree with Ellen, I could read the whole book and
Right.
decide the same thing.
Stories that are really good to
Yeah.
Well, I think what I really have to do is go back and listen, it's on YouTube. She picked out a few stories when she talked to us, and those are the ones.
Oh, let's,
Okay.
yeah, let's do
But I
that.
have to go back.
I have to respond. I really think the discussions have been great, but when you're doing literature, this group has been phenomenal all these years in going to the text and grappling with the text and getting all these opinions. And then you bring in personal experience. This is the reverse.
I-
This is
Yes.
personal experience.
I agree.
Oh, maybe in here you could find
Yeah,
something.
I
So
agree.
I would like to
agree.
see the
Okay,
I agree.
Sandy, what were you gonna say?
I just hope when you pick out the next book that it's larger print, because this book has extremely small print. And for those of us who are having eyesight problems, it's really difficult to read this.
Yes.
All right, it's good seeing everyone. Hope I see everybody soon, and you'll get an email from
Yeah, I
me
wanna
in a minute.
Yeah, I wanna-
What?
Vanessa,
What?
I think this author has a short story.
Oh, what's her name?
Elizabeth Graver, because,
Yeah,
well, you said this
I
book
have to
is,
look.
yeah, look, if you could look.
All right, Alice, I'm gonna come pick that up.
Vanessa,
Yeah.
do you know how long Andrew J's program is gonna be?
Yes,
How
it's
long?
an hour.
Oh, an hour is fine.
It's from 10 to 11.
Because I have to
Just-
be somewhere at one.
Let me just, I'm not, you can't tell anyone else. I happen to know he has 2 stone unveilings after.
Oh, gosh.
So he.
Oh, no, so it's
I
gonna
said,
be-
I'll get you out.
Oh, okay, okay.
So he's
10
got
to
a
11.
phone.
That's good to know. Thanks. By the way, this afternoon, I'm going.
Goodbye, everybody.
I'm going to the North Shore